Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
What's what?
Jerry, I'm out of wine.
Begin in just a moment.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi, Ann.
I said the elk quick email later.
The
The elk, they can send me the name of the
Hi, Courtney. You.
Giving you the name.
Hi, Nick.
Okay, folks, we're going to begin. I'm going to mute everyone. Sorry, I always hate to cut off the conversation. But, Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and Chag Sameach, as we conclude this day of Shavuot, a day in which we celebrate the gift of Torah we received at Mount Sinai. Some of us spent part of last evening learning. Some people did even more learning after ours was done, and here we conclude this day. And as many folks know, it's customary on festival holy days to incorporate prayers of Yizkor, prayers of remembrance. So later on in our service, we will be incorporating a Yizkor service into this service as well. So we'll share names in our community, and you'll be able to share additional names as well. So again, Zoom etiquette, please keep yourselves muted. If you have any questions or comments, please direct them to Becky Markowitz, who is helping to host here. She can help solve with technical issues. You can either keep folks on gallery view, where you can see everybody, or just speaker view, so whoever's speaking will appear big on the screen. I'm assuming that maybe it's me right now if you're in speaker view, I'm not sure. So we begin on page 16, which corresponds to page 134 in the larger Siddur. Sing praise to Adonai with the lyre, with the lyre and melodious song, Zamru Adonai Bechinor. And with full voices of song, we welcome the Sabbath bride into our midst with the words of Lecha Dodi. You can find the words on pages 20 and 21, or 138 and 139. Tonight we'll sing verse 1, and then we'll welcome the Sabbath bride with verse 9.
Shabbat,
Pages 29 and 147. There's one who sings the song of his own life, finding everything within himself. There's one who leaves the circle of herself and sings the song of her people. There's one whose voice rings with the song of humanity, hoping for the highest perfection. And there is one who rises even higher, uniting with all creatures, with all worlds, filling the universe with song. Nevarech, let us bless. Previous page. The gift of the universe that God gave to all of humankind, and the gift of Torah that God gave to the Jewish people and those who cast their lot with us. This reading at the bottom of page 33, 151 resonates tonight, especially at this season of Shavuot, of giving and receiving Torah. Torah is what God has revealed to us and what we discern of God. Ideas and ideals, laws and mitzvot, our religious heritage. It unfolds our memories of Abraham and Sarah, of Moses and Miriam and the prophets. It is legislation and explanation, allowing questions that challenge, answers that inspire, all a quest for meaning. It is our way of life, a path for our souls, and the design for a better world. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Abad.
We continue with the chanting of Ve'ahavta on the next page.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
I just invited someone to read via chat and I don't know. Okay, so I will read. We'll not put you on the spot. On page 39, 1:7. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there's no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. Praying should be comfortable. For some, we like to sit. People who meditate often find their way onto a mat on the floor. In times of more formal prayer, we often stand. Whatever's most comfortable for you is the way that you should pray, so long as you can find your way and weave your way into the words of our prayers. Whether they are the traditional prayers of the tefillah, which we chant from page 46 to page 60, or whether it's the prayer that simply flows from the heart. Whatever is most comfortable for you, however you want to pray, whatever words you want to pray, after we enter in together, you'll have a few moments to do this on your own. Page 46.
Adonai Svatai Tipta Adonai Svatai Tipta Ufiagir Tehilatecha Ufiagir Tehilatecha Adonai Svatai Tiptach Adonai Svatai Tiptach Ufiagir Tehilatecha Ufiagir Tehilatecha.
We'll take a few moments now to pray for our loved ones, friends, family members who are in need of God's healing presence. In a few moments, we'll lift our voices together as we sing the Sheberach L'Refuah. Before we do so, I invite you to write the names, type the names of the people whom you want to pray for tonight in the chat. I'll read those names aloud. And afterwards, we'll go through once more for those who might have difficulty with the chat to make sure that all the names are shared. And then we'll join together if you need the words on page 253, which correspond to page 371. The Shabbat we pray for Pat Montgomery, Sally Marriott, Selma Swartz, Randy Fair, Dara Foster Storch, Nancy Cohen, Barbara Rosenberg, Marilyn Denenberg, Joan Woodland, Holton Weingrad, Miriam Rosenstock, Flora Day, Gary Luck, Jen Milch, Ken Hickey, Lou Fleischer, Esteban Mazar, Mark Walker, Karen Levenberg, Sherry Katz, Shelley Goffberg, Richard Dutkin, Mark Spicer, Tracy Lerner, Melinda Lichardello, Diane Greenberg, Don Simon, Lori Krivet, Rose Paley, Phil Falkowitz, Jim Harper, Donna and Sal Albanese, Aileen Selkler, Kenny Rosen, Karen DeMario, Rita Levin, Blanche Rackety, Barbara Polanski, Harry Tankin, Michael Sachs, Mordechai Mayan, Eli Ben Aharon. Those are the names that were shared. If anyone else would like to share a name, you didn't put it in the chat, just put your hand up. And
Rabbi, I think there was Ernie Gross was just added.
okay, Ernie Gross, thank you. Want to add a name? Dara?
My mother, Audrey Winston.
Thank you.
Jackie, there you go.
James Molino is added.
Debbie Bitterman.
Harvey Slutsky.
The Sokler family.
Anyone else needs to name yourself for a moment? For all those named and all those whose names we hold in our hearts, and all those in our community whose names will appear on the screen in just a moment, we offer God's healing prayer to those who are in need. Yishaberach.
May the source of strength, who will bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say,
So we're going to go a little bit out of order tonight. I'm going to invite our President John Stevens to share some announcements. And after this, we will go straight into our Yizkor ritual, which will take us to the end of the service. John?
Thank you, Rabbi. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Chag Sameach. Rabbi and Kinter, thank you so much for leading us all together in a very lyrical and thoughtful and very special, intimate way for our Shabbat services this evening. And Yasher Koah to the two of you for participating in the Bucks County Kahila Shavuot celebration last evening. Celebrations for Shabbat continue as a community tomorrow. Kinter will lead Hevrat Torah starting at 10:15 in a Zoom room near you. And we will also, Kinter will also celebrate Havdalah at 7 o'clock tomorrow evening in a similar Zoom room. Check the links in your emails. Next Shabbat, we have a very special Shabbat. We are inviting all of our graduates, high school, college, and grad school, so we can celebrate and have a special blessing for you all. So please bring your graduates to Shabbat next Friday evening. And coincidentally, that morning we will celebrate our ELC graduates with a parade. This summer, we would like to continue our tradition of special participatory Shabbats. And we invite anyone who would like to offer a Devar Torah or some teaching during our July or August Shabbat services to please contact the rabbi to make those arrangements. We would love to learn from you. We are grateful to Dan Serkin, Kinter Flo Friedman, Steve Ginsburg, Jason Hart, and Rabbi Briskin for our weekly unique sessions of meditation. Please check the email for the time that's convenient for you. In terms of making an impact, save the date. We will reopen Shalom Hall for a blood drive on Monday, June 29th. So we are hopeful that we will fill yet have a distant blood drive in Shalom Hall in this time of need. Just a reminder, our learning sessions continue next week, Tuesday, with Lunch and Learn with the clergy and Torah study on Thursday. And for opportunities to connect, remind you of Rabbi Nightcap with the Rabbi next Thursday evening. And I am pleased to announce that we are back in the script business. Please contact Donna DeSantis and watch the link in our emails. And you can shop at Acme, Giant, McCaffrey, ShopRite, and Redner's, and also support the congregation by buying scripts. And we are glad that Donna is volunteering and doing a great job with that. So please contact her. And I wish everyone a relaxing and peaceful and restorative Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, John. Thank you. So we're going to transition now into a period of memory. Again, on our festival holy days, we blend both the joyful elements such as celebrating Shabbat, and lifting our voices, with times of remembrance and some sorrow as we think of those in our lives who have died in either recent days or in the last year, or those whom we are called to remember at this time. So we'll share some poetry, some music, a few words of reflection, and of course, El Malei Rachamim and Kaddish. We'll begin with the words of Esa Einai. I lift my eyes to the mountains. From where does my help come? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth.
Esa Einai El Harim, Me'ayin Yavo Ezri. Esa Einai El Harim, Me'ayin Yavo Ezri. Ezri, Nehim Adonai, Oseh Shamayim Va'aretz. Ezri, Nehim Adonai, Oseh Shamayim Va'aretz.
Right, screen share. I'm trying to share a screen right now. Okay. I think I'm having a technical issue for a moment.
Okay.
To share a screen that we can all join, but it's apparently not opening up for me. Okay, I'll just have to read the poem on my own screen. Give me one moment here. A poem called Choosing Life by Rabbi Earl Grolman. Grief ebbs, but it never ends. The path you walk is long and arduous. Trust yourself and respect your feelings. In time, you will gradually make peace with your loss. Then turn toward the future with courage and resolve. Some reflections for this current season. On March 29th, John Joseph Reed, age 74, of Edmonds, Washington, died. He was passionate about retaining his town's small town atmosphere. On that same day, Robert Weintraub, age 96, of New York City, died. He had a long career in the import-export business. On March 29th, Frida Okren, age 51, of New York City, died. She was a nurse with a zest for travel and knowledge. By March 29th, 2020, 2,072 individuals had died from the coronavirus. These are just 3 of them, each of whom has a name and a story, who had lived a long life or who had much more life to live. By May 29th, 2 months later, that number has swelled to more than 100,000 people, a staggering and mind-boggling number. Numbers do not tell stories, however. Numbers only provide data points. That is why last Sunday, for possibly the first time in decades, the cover of the Sunday New York Times did not include a single image or photograph. It did not publish a story. Rather, it briefly chronicled the lives of 1,000 people who have died in the United States from COVID-19. 1,000 names gathered from obituaries published in newspapers throughout the country. 1,000 names to mark the 100,000 dead, just 1%. Each of them has a name. Each of them has a story to share. Each of them has loved ones left behind who continue to grieve in lonely sorrow. Over the past 2 months, many in our Shir Ami community have mourned for family member or friends who have died. Some already in failing health contracted COVID, which hastened their death. Others died of natural causes, their long and full lives coming to a quiet but lonely end. Of the many families I've counseled in the last 2 months following the death of a loved one, it's not the death that troubles them as much. Rather, it is the inability to mourn as one is accustomed, including me. My aunt died in early April. She was 85 years old and had battled Parkinson's and dementia for a number of years. She was well cared for in a memory care facility, and she did not die of COVID. However, I will never forget what it was like to be at her funeral. The rabbi on one screen from his home, the cantor on another screen from hers. One screen was trained on the casket at the cemetery where she was to be buried, but no one else was gathered except the cemetery person and a representative from the mortuary. My first three cousins, my aunt's children, filled separate screens, one in New Jersey, Minneapolis, and San Francisco, zooming in for their mother's funeral. Two of their children were sitting alone in their apartments in St. Louis, and grieving alone, with no one to hold on to or cry with, alone. I would have made a Shiva call to my cousin's home in New Jersey had that been an option. Instead, I logged on for a Zoom minion. That was my first one. And sadly, I'm getting used to it. It's the loneliness of death in the time of COVID that is most difficult. People dying in hospitals or nursing homes alone. Children mourning the death of a parent alone. An empty Shiva home, a surviving spouse left to mourn alone. I've spoken to people whose loved one died in January or February. Strange, but they expressed their gratitude that they had the chance to begin the mourning process normally. And they empathize with others who have not been so fortunate. Dan Barry of the New York Times wrote powerfully last week these words. Before, we came together in halls and bars and places of worship to remember and honor the dead. In these vital moments of communion, it could feel as though the departed were with us one last time, briefly resurrected by the sheer power of our collective love to share that closing prayer, that parting glass, that final hug. Now for most of those who died in the past few months, there were no large gatherings of consolation and recited prayers for peaceful rest. Barry continues, a virtual memorial service was held instead, perhaps, with mourners praying into a laptop, followed by a burial, perhaps with masked mourners watching from their cars as another coffin was received by the earth. In a larger sense, the suspension of our familiar rituals of burial reflected what life in a pandemic has been like, the absence of any clear end. Even the dead have to wait. In a few moments, I will read the names of men and women who have died since last Shavuot, as is part of our Yizkor tradition. Some were members of our Shirami family, others related to members of our family. Of the 38 names, those who died in the past year, 15 have died since we've been quarantined. That means 15 families could not sit Shiva with others. 15 families could not surround themselves with scores of friends and loved ones to receive their comfort and support. 15 families upended by this pernicious virus. Some of these 15 died of COVID, but most did not. All, however, in their last moments of life and in the aftermath, were affected by COVID, powerfully ceding control of even this most sacred act of finality to the virus. Yizkor is a time to remember, whether our loved one died in recent days, in the past year, or many years ago. Yizkor brings us together to recall with love and tenderness those who brought meaning to our lives. We will all remember what it was like to mourn in the time of COVID. God willing, the memories of the mourning process will dissipate and be replaced simply with the memories of those whom we loved, not the circumstances in which they died. On May 15th, Dolores De Laurentiis, age 89 of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, died. She was a social worker and political fundraiser. On May 19th, Annie Glenn, age 91 of St. Paul, Minnesota, died. She was a champion of people with speech disorders. Each of us has a name and a story. And when we die, loved ones left behind to mourn and grieve. May we use this moment of Yizkor to cherish the memory of all whom we loved, whose spirit we continue to carry in our hearts. Amen.
As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. We remember. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. We remember.
A poem, the woman known simply as Zelda. Each of us has a name given by God and given by our parents. Each of us has a name given by our stature and our smile, and given by what we wear. Each of us has a name given by the mountains and given by our walls. Each of us has a name given by the stars and given by our neighbors. Each of us has a name given by our sins and given by our longing. Each of us has a name given by our enemies and given by our love. Each of us has a name given by our celebrations and given by our work. Each of us has a name given by the seasons and given by our blindness. Each of us has a name given by the sea and given by our death. At this time, I'll be sharing the names of those for whom we are in the early days of mourning, those for whom we are observing Shiva and Shloshim. Following that list, I'll share the names of those in our congregation who died since last Shavuot. And then we'll share the names of all those whose Yortzeiten, the anniversaries of their deaths, we will observe next week and whom we remember by name tonight. Lost to our community in recent days, those who are observing the first days of Shiva, we remember Sina Pachter, Fidel Sheckman, Steve Mazis, Aileen Sokler, and those for whom we continue to observe the first 30 days of remembrance. Susie Harbaugh, Louis Goldner, Bernard Love, Gordon Lewis, Barry Stupine, Sylvia Shane, Eileen Friedman. We remember those who are part of our Shir Me community, loved ones of our members who died the last year since Shavuot. We remember Jack Chesner, Gloria Kushner-Slingbaum, Esther Grossman, Jordana Baum, Howard Berger, Marvin Dubin, Harry Fuld, Herbert Strauss, Harris Rawitz, Harriet Schnitzer, Lawrence Larry Rosenstock, Janice Copens, Gladys Maharam, Hilda Jonas, Joel Levy, Ida Snyderman, Isabel Boxman, Esther Romano, Miles Buckman, Peter Tashman, Sherman Kreiner, Zelda Weiner, Naomi Montgomery, Shirley Saltzman, Janet Berg, Susan Fish, Saul Superfine, Eileen Friedman, Barbara Zinberg, Dorothy Ruskin, Barbara Lee. We also add these names of Jack Westerman, Albert and Rose Abramson, Charles and Stella Eckstein. And we remember those whose Yortzeit will fall next week. We remember Julius Antman, Lila Bazilyan, Arthur Berger, Edith Block, Arthur Boxman, Ruth Burke, Herman Cooper, Edward Irving Dick, Faye Finkel, Doris Fisher, Marjorie Garber, Morris Goldberg, Bess Goodman, Nathan Gould, Nathan Eidelberg, Morris Califer, Shirley Niaz, Gerard Corda, Abe Kreiner, William Leschner, Dorothy Maydell, Stan Muffs, Edith Rodas, Fred Sarn, Etta Schildkraut, Irene Lydia Schwartz, Morris Scheckman, Marjorie Weinstein, Benjamin Wolbransky, Leah Yasin, and Cynthia Zaretsky. If you want to add a name for me to recite out loud, either from Shloshim or Yortzeit, or at this moment of Yizkor, please type the name into the chat box and I will read the name on your behalf. If the name has not been read, that is. Jacob Sobel, Samuel Roth, Justin Cohen, Milton Rosenstock, Charlotte Gloria Koblenz, William Koblenz, Robert Burney, Blanche and Walter Yaris, Robin, Kathy Krupa, Janet Krasner, Lillian Solomon, Siggy Furman, each of us has a name given by God and given by our parents. Each of us has a name given by the sea and given by our death. If you can, please rise for El Malay Rachamim.
El Malay Rachamim, Shachein Bamramim, Hamsei Menucha Nefana, Tachat Kanfei Ashchina, Im Kedoshim Utarim, Zohar Akiyah, Masirim, Lenishmat Yakireinu, Shehalchu Le'olamam, Val Harachamim, Harachamim, Yasirem Beseter Knafav, Le'olamim, Leitzra B'tzra Chaim, and Nishmatam, Adonai hu nachalatam, ve'anucha v'shalom al mishkavam, v'nomar Amen.
Fully compassionate God on high, To our loved ones who have entered eternity, grant clear and certain rest with you in the lofty heights of the sacred and pure, whose brightness shines like the very glow of heaven. Source of mercy, forever enfold them in the embrace of your wings, secure their souls in eternity. Adonai, they are yours. They will rest in peace. Amen. Poem before we say Kaddish together, by Harold Schulweis. Called The Yahrzeit Glass. The wick and the wax that fills the glass lit in silence. I observe each flicker a flashback to a recalled gesture. At the end of the day, after wax is cleansed, washed out, the plain glass remains. I recall my grandfather drinking hot tea from that very glass, a spoon in the glass to prevent it from cracking feet. The glass will find its place on the shelves of glasses, indistinguishable from the others. Using that glass becomes a sacred act. Holiness is not outside the cupboard of ordinary life. The sacred is not in some otherworldly precinct deposited in some shrine. Here, glass that once contained wax in memory of the deceased now holds tea and milk and coffee, held to the lips, its contents swallowed, absorbed. What loving memory to know that my beloved continues to nurture me posthumously, a love that outlives yesterday. I invite you to please rise again for Kadisha Tome, the Mourner's Kaddish, on page 294 or 598. I'm going to unmute everyone, so know that it will be a cacophony of sound. Hope you'll be able to follow as we lead together.
No, I'm not. Come in with me. No, I'm not. I'm terrible. Come in with me.
Page 294, 598. Yit Gadal, V'yit Kadash, Rabbah. Be'alma divra chirute, Yamlich malchute. Chayechon v'yomechon, Chaye dechol Beit Yisrael. Bagalat v'zman kariv, Amen.
May Rabba Mivarach Barach v'yishtabach v'yit pa'ar v'yit ramam v'yit v'yit halal v'yit kusha min kol v'rchata v'shirata v'chata v'nechamata Amiran v'yalma v'yamru Amen
Shlama Rabba Mishmael.
Alena v'yal Kol Yisrael v'yamru Amen
Aseh Shalom
Aseh Shalom Alena v'yal Kol Yisrael
Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel. To which we say, Amen.
Amen.
Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'yimeru. Amen.
So we'll conclude in just a moment with Adonai Oz, which you can follow along on page 338 or 642. As Cantor's singing, I invite you to sing along, type wishes for everyone into the chat box. To everyone, wishing Shabbat Shalom. And again, as is our custom now, if you'd like to be broken out randomly into a breakout room afterwards for a little bit of Oneg Shabbat and conversation, just hang on for a few moments and we will do that. Everyone else can bid farewell, and we'll those who want to stick around can do that. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom. I'll unmute everyone. Say Shabbat shalom. Put something in the chat
Shabbat
box.
shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Gallery view.
Shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Now,
Don't want to stick around. We'll put you into a breakout room in a little bit. Shabbat shalom, Arlene and Barbara and Lenny and Carl and Howard and Becky and Jackie and Alex and Judy and Ann.
I didn't
Oh my goodness, I have all these names. Debbie, Shane, Rosenthal, and Hal and Diana, Nora and Lindbergh,
Shabbat shalom.
Come say
Sue,
hi.
Janice and Howard.
Shabbat
Eric,
shalom.
really good to see you,
Shabbat
Eric. We miss you
shalom,
playing. We need your piano back.
Hi, Eric.
Hello, Broders. Hello, Lenore. Hi, Darcy. Hope everything is okay up in Boston. Mazel tov on your new granddaughter. Hello, Steve and Dee. Hello, Arthur and
I guess
Paula.
so.
Room.
David and Sheila. Hi, Ed and Ellie. And Matt and Susan. Bonnie and Cornelica there too. Travis. I think I got Ann already, right?
yes.
Okay, good. I mean, because if I missed anyone, I'm going to hear about it. I know it.
Who's there?
Susan and Harvey. Hi, Melanie.
Hi.
Garrett, I'm glad you are on with us. Even though you're not next to John, I'm glad you're with us. It's really good to have you here. The Cohen family's still here. All right, so it looks like we got some folks here. Okay, I'm going to
Okay. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Okay. If anyone wants to stick around, I'm going to break into a couple of.
I have to wait for him.
I got 20 screens here. I'm going to break into two rooms here, and if the numbers a little bit, I'll just try to make sure that everything is even. So Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and see you next week. Okay, go into your rooms. Enjoy, folks. Have some good conversation. All right. Lenore, do you know what you need to do, Lenore? Cute. That's a wrap.
No.